Hey there, and welcome to the Bold Badass Business Show, where we bring you badasses from all over the globe. And I am thrilled today, you all, to have in the house Dr. L, who is the parent whisperer and also the legacy builder's mentor. Now, Dr. L has been in business for many, many years. He has an incredible summit coming up. He has regular summits. In fact, maybe you'll tell us about some of those. And I have been thrilled to meet him through networking and was very, very impressed with his message and his candor and his integrity. So today we are in for a big treat. Welcome to the show, Dr. L.
Thank you, Dr. Barnsley. Glad to be here. Super excited for the audience members and what we're about to do today.
Yes, because what could be better than talking about wealth? Wealth. Everybody's talking about wealth these days, but I think the way they're talking about it has a lot of problems. So we're going to get into that. But first of all, I want to ask you, Dr. L, what's that moment? Because we have some aspiring business owners and some who are already in business who are listening. What was that moment in your life where you determined, you know what? I'm really not employable. I'm going to start my own business.
Well, that started pretty early on, basically. So this is before I even got out of school. Most of the jobs, quote unquote, that I had, I felt that, I brought a lot to the table, but ultimately, um, either they weren't a good fit for me or what was being asked of me was not enough based on my capabilities. So all it took was the first company that I started on my own to realize that, you know what, I'm never going back to employment, and that was that.
It's great, isn't it? You fired yourself from any other jobs.
Absolutely,
It's
absolutely.
such a freeing thing
Yeah.
in so
So
many ways.
yeah, so basically, when I had my first company, thereafter, even if I had to work someone for someone, it would be a hiring of me as an independent contractor, and that's somebody who's rendering his services, his expertise, and not something that is permanent. So that's the closest I've ever gone to employment in the past 20 years.
You and me both. And the anniversary of my business is this month, and in fact, 25 years. And yes, that's the closest I've come to employment, except for teaching some English as a second language classes, is just because I loved it.
Right.
I loved it. So I did it on the side for fun and just loved my students. Well, so today we're going to talk about the four non negotiable matrices of real wealth creation. And, that word wealth is bandied around a lot. So let me first ask you, how do you define real wealth?
Good point. And actually, a lot of times, and I think most of what we're about to talk about uh, comes from the fact that once you start your own business, you have to start figuring out where you're at, where you want to go, and set some parameters, right? It's kind of like the GPS. You can put in the address, but if you don't know where that dot on the map is where you're at, that's a problem. And if you know where the dot on the map is, but then you don't know where you're going, that also is a problem.
Mhm.
And given that most companies, they do have some place in their objectives, profitability, naturally you need to understand what that means and what is profit in the first place. And once you achieve it, what's the goal? Like, what are you going to do with that profit? I deal with a lot of families nowadays. And when I ask the kids, like, what are you going to do when you grow up? Or what's going to happen? They're like, I'm going to be an influencer. I'm going to be a millionaire. And then, of course, my next question is, great. What are you going to do with your influence? What are you going to do with your millionaire? And all of a sudden there is silence. And I think that's where a lot of our society kind of falls short. We all have places that we want to strive up to, but we don't quite know why.
Yeah.
And the end result is that you end up someplace and then you realize this is not exactly where I wanted to end up or what I had in mind. And so now you look for the next goal. So if you're going to talk about wealth, we need to redefine it because too many people define their wealth purely by numbers, usually some associated with a bank account. And in reality, your wealth is a lot more than that. And when you let the society and policies and governments and family and friends and schools dictate what really success means, then you start actually going towards goals that end up not making you happy. And ultimately, part of our wealth is our the tool that we use to fulfill our goals and be able to reach happiness, right? So wealth for me is your tool and health is the ability. So that's how I usually start. As a physician, I have to start with health. But health, a lot of times they're like, health is your greatest wealth. I'm like, no, no, no. They're not in the same category. They're separate, and you need to have both of them. So health is your ability, and wealth is the tool. If you have the ability but you don't have the tool, then you don't really achieve the full potential of your life. And if you
Yeah.
have the tools but you don't have the ability, that's not going to go far neither, right? So we want to make sure that we redefine wealth, and wealth is defined. If you guys are ready, pen and paper, four categories. Wealth is defined by the skills, the knowledge, the facts, ultimately what you know.
Hmm.
That's part of your wealth. And many people invest a lot of time and money into gaining skills and knowledge and facts so that they can then utilize that for gaining material wealth, which is the second one, right? The resources, material wealth. And material wealth goes beyond just money, basically. There's many other things. Your home, there's a lot of other stuff, your car, the money in the bank account, your business. These are all part of the material wealth, right? And then you also have the other one that most people don't think about, but really it is the one that you can't like have more of.
Okay, let's
We're
pause
all,
you. Let's pause you. Let's keep them in suspense. All right, you all, you've
yes,
got to wait for that one.
there
I
you
want
go.
to say something really quickly because Dr. L, I have a book. I have a book, actually, it's a book package, which is How to Get Out of Debt and Get On with Your Life. Every Woman's Guide to Create Prosperity with What You Have Right Now. And in that book, one of the things, the points I make is that wealth, actually, the origin of the word is the Old English word weal, Weal, which means well being. And so, as far as you and I think, are concerned, none of this other stuff matters if you don't have well being, right?
Correct.
And what does that mean? Notice it's not well doing. It's not well doing. Let's go do, do, do. It's well being. What is the state of your being? How are you being in the world? How are you? Are you happy? Are you contented? Are you joyful? Or are you miserable and resentful uh, and sad? You
Absolutely.
know?
Absolutely. Right. And you're absolutely correct when we talk about well-being. And I put into that category that there are four components also to your well-being. There's the physical part, there's the
Mm-hmm.
mental part, there's the social part, and there's the spiritual part.
Mm-hmm.
And again, don't pick and choose do I want to have this versus the other. You need all four of those, basically. A person who's disconnected from society, they're going to be healthy for only so long. A person who doesn't have a connection to a higher purpose is going to feel lost basically and eventually going to cause anxiety for themselves or depression. So
Yes.
yeah, well-being is a big part of this. It has all of those components in it, and yeah, don't settle for one or the other.
And since you're a physician, I want to say, that definition too is so important because the people who actually have all of those quadrants, the spiritual, the social, I call it emotional. I have different words for it, but you said spiritual, social. What were the other two? Intellectual.
Physical, mental,
Yeah.
social, and spiritual. Yep.
And when you have all four of those components, the studies show that you live longer. More people live longer, your longevity is increased. But think about also the quality of your life is vastly increased because nothing is missing.
Right.
You're
Right.
not missing anything. And I really believe, Dr. L, that we're in this society that is like, gimme, gimme, gimme. I want more, I want more, I want more. This rampant consumerism because people are not connected to their insides, their well-being.
Right, exactly. And that's that starting dot, right? That's the
Mhm.
part in the GPS that tells you where you're at. If you don't have a good sense of where you're at in the world or in connection to the world, then that's a tough place to set sail from.
So I've got to ask you something. Okay. I ask it. If it comes to my head, I ask it. And I always say, don't give me questions because I won't ask them. It's just how it's going to go. We're going to let this go where it needs to go. But I had a question that just popped in. And so I know somebody's thinking this out there. And that is, you left being a physician.
Yep.
You really did. And we know that physicians have some of the highest rates of suicide and burnout and divorce too. So tell us more about that aspect of that decision to say, you know what, physician, heal thyself. You know what, I'm really going to do that. I'm going to start my own business.
Exactly. So, a little background about myself, guys. I ran a private practice for about 10 years. It was an award-winning practice. I was voted twice as America's top doctors, and I got a lot of enjoyment from it. So that being the case, walking away from such an opportunity is a real head turner because, as you said, it's like what happened and why. Currently, I still recognize myself or identify as a clinical neuroscientist, but I'm
Mhm.
also a family advocate and also a consultant for the United Nations. So, as you said, where do you go from physician to UN? And the reason for it is because I realized I would come home at the end of the day, I would be closing the office down, and I had an amazing day. I changed lives helping families who had children with autism spectrum disorders.
Mhm.
And yet I felt like there was more for me to offer. And the more success I had, the less I felt successful
Mm.
because with more success usually comes more responsibility. And as I became more responsible in the private uh, practice arena, that meant that more and more of my time would be tied down to the brick and mortar office. And I felt that there was a lot of families that could benefit from the stuff that I was talking about, and I wanted to take it global. Now, of course, this is what 2006, 2007. So telemedicine was still about a decade and a half ahead, and everybody told me it's not a thing. But nevertheless, I realized, you know what? I'm not going to listen to them. And at some point, I'm going to go ahead and switch to an online model, to a global model. And it took me 2 years actually after I left private practice to really consolidate my identity all over again.
Mm.
Because if I'm a physician and I am not treating patients, then who am I?
Who are
Right.
you?
So
If you're
again,
not in that white coat, Dr. L, who in the heck are you?
exactly.
Do you
So
sometimes
that
keep it in your closet and like pull it out and put it on,
I
secretly?
still treat patients. I have an active license. I never gave it up. But and there are plenty of people that know me really well, and they're like, "You're doing a disservice to humanity by not treating patients." And I'm
Mm.
like, "Yes, but I have a higher calling. But if anybody ever needs my assistance, I'm available for consultations and for physician work, basically. But I don't actively promote it, and I don't accept any kind of case. In any case." So, but that took 2 years for me to really figure out what my bearings are and then step forward in that path,
Okay,
basically.
I want to pause you because this is really a gem for everyone to hear because on the Bold Badass Business Show we do the no BS business, right? And I want you all to really hear this. It took 2 years for Dr. L to really, as he said, find his bearings and find his new why and formulate how he was going to take this global. And I want everyone to really hear that because our society also believes in quick fixes. And you know what? There is no business that is going to build itself overnight. And there is no such thing as overnight success. So, those of you listening, I just want you to really hear this. It takes time and it takes soul searching, it takes excavation to find that thing that you are called to, that higher calling, that reason you've been put on the planet, that thing that nobody else can do. And it just doesn't happen overnight. So when I see people struggling and thinking of quitting, I just want to say quitting is not an option, people. So this is your butt kick for today from Dr. B. And Dr. L, I love that we, Dr. B, could we have Dr. B, Dr. L, Dr. A? Dr. L is telling you the real truth here, that it was 2 years of really a lot of hard work. And what would you say, how did you keep yourself going during that time, Dr. L?
Well, again, aligning with my values. So I
Mhm.
mentioned that the more successful I became, the less successful I felt. Well, one of my top values is freedom.
Mhm.
So if I was bound to go to the office for 12 hours and more success meant more days at the office and more hours at the office, this was not a sustainable thing to do. And that's something that we really need to think. You were talking about quick fixes. Quick fixes are hardly ever sustainable. We want to figure out what it is that we want to do at the end of our life or 10 years from now that we would still be happy doing, and then step forward in that path, because now it's a process instead of a goal.
So
And
what do we want to be doing at the end of our life that we would still be enjoying? That is a powerful question to ask yourselves, everyone listening. What do I really want to be doing so that at the end of my life, I'm still happy doing it?
so,
Yeah.
Dr. B, you talked at the beginning of this session about how do you define wealth?
Hmm.
Well, for most people, when you talk about wealth, it's the same question. What would you do if you won the lottery tomorrow, right? And their mindset goes towards, okay, I got this money. What am I going to do? And for many people who talk about retirement, it's the same thing. The retirement is that point where you're going to stop doing what you're doing today so you can go and do what you enjoy to do.
Hmm.
What if you were to actually go ahead and live your retirement life starting today? Something that you can do to your last breath because it brings you joy. And that's what that 2 years was about, for me to figure out what it is that I truly want to do. And I had a lot of struggles, and I know many people that are listening had that struggle when
Hmm.
they're going through high school or college, and everybody asks you, what are you going to do when you grow up? What is going to be your major and all of those things? And the reality is, you simply don't have the experience. You don't know yourself well enough to
Right.
be able to make that decision. So there aren't really no wrong answers at the time. Follow your heart, follow your passions, but really understand that retirement really starts today. It doesn't start when you're 65 or 70.
That is so fantastic. I'm so glad you said that because I am in this travel club, Dr. L. I'm having so much fun. And we go anywhere. People just got back from the Ritz Carlton in Qatar. And they spent very little to go, by the way, because we get special pricing. But what I love about this is that it's this fun group of people, and we're doing it now instead of when we are retired. And usually people get retired, they retire, and then they get retired underground, right?
Right,
There is a
right.
direct correlation. A lot of people die within
Exactly.
like 6 months of
Exactly.
quote unquote retiring. So I really think what you're saying is so important. And I have always said that I always traveled quite a lot. And I always said, I want to do this now. I don't want to be one of these one of these American tourists who's out with their walker. And it's super sad. How can you use your walker in Edinburgh, Scotland on those cobblestones anyway? You know what I'm saying? It
Yeah.
just, and they look awful. And, also the sedentary lifestyle, the things that we have in this country that are really a problem. So
Absolutely.
I love what you're saying. I want everyone to think about that. What would you do now to bring in that joy of retirement? That's so powerful. Yes, so
Absolutely.
we've kept them in suspense, haven't we, about that fourth thing, right? Who
Yep.
wants to know? You need to put a comment. Don't be an internet voyeur. Put a comment, you all. Who wants to
Mhm.
know? Put a yes. Put a yes. Me, me, me. So, Dr. L, drum roll, please. What is that fourth aspect of wealth creation that
Absolutely.
most people neglect, ignore, overlook?
So just recap for people with short memory spans. First one was skills, knowledge, and facts, what you know. Second one was your resources, right?
Mhm.
Money included, your affluence included. Third one, something that we never get more of, time, right? We
Mhm.
all have a certain amount of time, and you got to look at it as your wealth. And you waste it, you're literally burning wealth. You're burning money. Think of it that way, right? So that's the third one. Now, the fourth one is who you know, your connections, right? For most of the people that are poor or they don't feel like they got to really manifest what they are all about in this lifetime, they trade their time to learn facts, knowledge, and skills and accumulate wealth. For the people who are successful, they trade in their time. See, in both cases, you're trading, you have to trade your time anyways. What are you going to trade it for? They trade it for connections. We are social creatures. Connections is by far the most important component of wealth. Why? Because through connections, you can find people that will help you do a task. Therefore, you buy some of your time back. Through
Mm,
connections, you can find people who have access to resources, i.e., banks. Like, do you have a connection at the bank? Do you know a loan officer, a
mm,
private lender, an angel investor?
mhm.
That's who you know, right? So they can give you resources. And through connections, you can always locate people with knowledge, facts, and skills so that they can give you insight as to what is the best option in your decision making, right? So who you know is always more important than what you know is more important than your all the money that you have in the bank. And ultimately, as you get older, the number of connections dwindles because people move on, people pass on, and
Mhm.
you also become more set in your ways. So you have to actively, constantly work on growing your network, growing your connections, who you know, and then also how many people you know as well. So it's the
All right.
quantity and the quality.
You are speaking truth. This is truth. I just want to say truth, truth, truth. This is truth. And you know what? One of the reasons, and I really want everybody to hear this, I've been in business 25 years. I've made it 25 years as a speaker, coach, and author. And I've seen people go out of business. I've seen big people go out of business. Big, big speakers go out of business. And I would say the greatest reason why I have had a business that sustained itself and grew is because of connections. It's because of, and I love that word, it's a better word than networking. It's because of truly caring about people, expressing that caring, giving to others. And then when you need something, they're right there. They want to help, you know and not even when you even if you haven't given to them, if there's someone who is of that uh makeup, they'll give to you first and then you get to give back. But that reciprocity in relationship, and the having the support and the connection, to know that you're supported, you have cheerleaders, you have yaysayers, not naysayers around you, is so essential to be able to have the stamina and also the resources for business. That is truth, truth, truth. I wouldn't be here. You wouldn't either. And
Yeah,
it strikes me, Dr. L, that that's one of the things that medicine really needs to learn. And I will tell you, my doctor, he's now retired, but I loved him because, I would go in and he would tell me about when he was lost in the Amazon forest for 3 days. And he met these people who taught him all about herbal medicine. I mean, he was super interesting and perfect doctor for me because he was open to things that were beyond what we could actually see in the world. But I kept going to him because he not only had that medical knowledge, but I connected with him, and he spent time. He didn't do the typical 10 minutes.
I actually had a talk, gave a talk at Kennedy Krieger Institute and Johns Hopkins University where I was talking to a lot of young primary care physicians. And I said, it is your duty to understand the solutions out there as best as you can. Because when people come to you and they ask about these things, if you don't have an answer that is grounded in fact, what ends up happening is they go out there, they get desperate, and they start searching for it themselves. And while I do promote investigation of the truth, individual investigation of the truth, I do also say that a little bit of knowledge could be a dangerous thing as well. So if you have a trusted individual that knows a little more than you do about something like health and can offer options rather than the one that is just placed in front of them, That is a good physician, basically. And that's part of our duty as a physician.
And to really spend that time listening,
Right.
really
Exactly.
listening. And in business, we need to listen so deeply. We need to listen to what's not being said. And I think this is true. We are really in business. We are physicians for people in the sense that we're solving a problem. We're solving a pain that someone has, and they've finally gotten in pain enough to come and seek help,
Right.
right?
Exactly. Exactly. Usually, if somebody comes to me as a physician, um, I I can fail in that initial moment of consultation and connecting with them in either understanding the problem or
Mm,
understanding what their goals and aspirations are. Or so if I fail in those two, what ends up happening is my prognosis, my recommendation will be short-sighted
mm,
and it can totally miss the point. So either by luck, I get it right or
mm,
I get it wrong. If I get it wrong, well, I didn't help the patient. If I get it right, but I didn't convey that to the patient will not follow through with my recommendations because they didn't feel listened to, they didn't feel heard. So when they don't take my recommendations, they're less likely to get better. Either way, it's a lose situation. So
mm.
it's very important to feel listened to feel heard, understood, and so yeah, connect.
I'm thinking about Outlanders. I love this show, Dr. L. I don't know if you have watched it, but the woman is a physician who travels back in time, Claire, right? And she encounters all sorts of problems with people, who don't believe she can be a surgeon or this or that because she's a woman and she's back in the 1700s, right?
Mm.
Pre-independence. And it's just fascinating because she has this incredible degree from the United States from, the 90s or 2000s in this series. But one of the things that I think is so apparent there is the level of caring that she has for people, and that caring is almost as healing as the medicinal herbs that she uses and the other things that she uses. So I come back to something I heard recently and I thought it was very powerful. It was, don't listen to reply, listen to understand.
Yeah, good words. I like that.
Listen to understand. And I believe that when we do this in business, we do this in medicine. And again, business is kind of medicine for people's ailments um, that are happening, whether it's you're working with people who are going through grief or you're working with somebody who wants to build an addition to their house, whatever it is, we're helping solve that issue that they have. And we're applying, hopefully, our caring, and our expertise to that. So, Dr. L, when you say that so many people overlook connection, and this causes incredible problems for them in life, in business, in their level of happiness and satisfaction with their lives, their fulfillment level, what would you say are the best ways for people to nurture, people who are in business or thinking about starting a business, to nurture connections?
Good point. So I want to preface this with the fact that what's the ultimate point of connecting? Because we talked about wealth and it's like, okay, why wealth? How do you define wealth? So now we're on to connecting and why connect? Why is this important? And we understand now that it's an important component of wealth. Well, every single one of us is hardwired as as a species to connect and to share. This is how we find our relevance in the world. So if you do not have connections, you lose that relevance, right? People that age over time, they become less relevant to the world, right? Because they're from a different time, different connections, different set of experiences, right? So what they share and what they also receive from the community is less fulfilling for them, right?
Mm,
So when it comes to us in the art of connecting, we have to understand where are we coming from? What do I have to connect with? What do I have to share? How do I become relevant? So for many of us, like you said, it's a process of soul searching. What are the knowledges and facts? What are the experiences? Like, what are your values? Because those are the things that you can share. You can't share what you don't have, right? And if you have led a miserable life, guess what you're going to share? This is why they say hurt people, basically, because like we're wired to share. Now, it doesn't matter what you're sharing to you
Mm,
because that is what you're supposed to do. Like our species has shared experiences so that the next generation would be better off. And initially, it was just word of mouth and parenting. And then later on, it became books and libraries, and they
mm,
became governments and institutions that have shared this forward into our civilization. So when it comes to connecting, the first and the starting point is what are you going to share? Second one is how are you going to share it, right? So what are you going to share with is kind of easy because you can just simply look at your past, what you've devoted your time to, what you're all about, what you stand for, what you stand against, right?
mm,
So that's what you're going to share. Now, the other part is how are you going to share it? And bear in mind, you can always learn more stuff and things are always coming to you. Divine intervention, God speaks to you. You'll be sharing that too. That's what prophets have done as well, right?
mm,
So we share. How are you going to share it is also important. Now, this is the part where our modern day society, despite being super connected, doesn't do really well because the how part needs to allow room for others to exist
mm,
while you still have the opportunity to give your information, give your relevance out to the world. So, in doing so, usually in the process of connecting, you have to have a certain degree of altruism, which means that you have to allow the other person to feel heard, understood, and connected before they are open and receiving for you to share your experience with them.
mhm,
So when we started this, if I was just to come out and start saying blah blah blah, this is what needs to happen and everything, it wouldn't make sense. That's why Dr. Barnsley actually shared a little bit about myself, a little bit about this session, so that you guys start opening up, start receiving, right? So when that happens, now collaboration begins. It's not competitive. Let me get my word over yours,
mm,
and then in the end, neither person feels hurt. There's a big difference between debate and collaboration.
mm,
And
mm.
over the past, I don't know, I don't want to put the time frame or a location to it, but we have gone through a period in our history where it has been competitiveness, and there is room for competition. But when it comes to bringing people together, we need to make sure that we do more collaboration, allowing room for people to exist. And how do we do that? Think about it physically, mentally, socially, spiritually. Can you allow room for the person that's in front of you to exist physically, mentally,
Mm.
socially, spiritually? Some people cannot be in the same room with another person. Other people cannot hear the words and the thoughts of another person. Some people can't stand the sight of another person. Some people cannot tolerate another person's faith, physically, mentally, socially. It's like if you can't do that, how are you going to make yourself relevant to them and share your thoughts?
Well, we
There's a
know they hate
disconnect.
themselves. That's the thing. They hate themselves, because you're going to treat other people the way you feel about yourself. And that is so important, I believe. Um, I read lots of different spiritual texts, Dr. L, but in this case, I'll quote the Bible, right? But we could talk about Sufism or all sorts of stuff. Um, you know, love your neighbor as thyself isn't really so much about loving the other person. Think about it. We usually love other people, or we treat other people better than we treat ourselves. All right, we usually do. And so, what if we took that and the kind of language that we use for other people we love, we used with ourselves? So, love your neighbor as thyself also has this meaning, to love yourself in the way that you usually love your neighbor. You know, friend has a issue. You wouldn't say, well, you stupid. You would say, oh wow, that's really hard, and you know what, you are persevering and you're amazing, you are smart, I know that you have the resources to get through this, and I'm here to support you. Wouldn't you? Or something like that. You wouldn't say, you stupid. And yet we do that. And in business owners do this to ourselves. We shame ourselves, right? We shame ourselves for all sorts of things that go awry, that may have nothing at all to do with us. The person who
And that
doesn't roll in the
and
program,
And you
whatever.
just pointed out something really important, that whole shaming ourselves. That is the initial connection. That is the initial relationship, right? So when you are shaming yourself, you're not allowing room for yourself to exist. When you shame a thought that you have,
Mhm.
that's a mental, not allowing room for your mental presence to exist, right? So these are all ways, like the first relationship is your relationship with yourself. You want to learn to connect to others, learn how to connect with your heart. Like those 2 years that we talked about, those 2 years was me connecting to myself. And it is hard, especially for professionals, for those people who have dedicated their lives to causes, or especially a lot of moms wearing so many different hats, they come last. Like you need to connect with yourself, because how you relate and how, like you're literally teaching that, role modeling that to the next generation. And for many of us, we sacrifice ourselves so that our kids can have a better life. But then what are we teaching them? That you come last and something else comes first, right?
Okay, I have to tell you, I've been listening to a lot of Dr. Gabor Mate's work, and I absolutely love. I would love to have him on the show. He's like 80 now. I better hurry up, right? Better hurry up there. And I just actually ordered his book Scattered Mind, which is about ADHD. But this, I think, is so important. If we could learn these things earlier. And he's really truthful about the fact that when he was younger, he scared his kids, right? He scared his children. He scared people around him. And he began to get this wisdom, which he puts into his books and is passing on. Well, could the rest of us actually take that in and do it earlier, so we could break some of these generational patterns and generational traumas that occur? And I really do appreciate his message. It's very powerful. I think it relates to what you're saying too, Dr. L, because connection is, he says that all addiction, and he implies a lot of mental illness, is from what? Lack of connection.
Connection, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Take a deep breath, everybody. Let's let that sink in. How are your connections to yourself and others, in your life, in your business? Think about that for a second. It's all right to have a bit of silence. Powerful. So, Dr.
Dr. Lang.
L, where can somebody start repairing these connections?
So I would say there, as we mentioned, there is quality and then there's quantity. The quality revolves around the people you already know. Can you make a point of making a list and going down that list and assessing where you stand with that person, see if there's something you can do to connect with them or improve the quality of the connection, the bond that you have with that person.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the quality part. On the quantity side is, how actively do you connect with people on a day-to-day basis? When you go to a grocery store, do you just grab your bags and head out? Do you pay attention to the teller that's behind the desk? Do you hold the door for the person and look them in the eye? In the parking lot, do you play the parking wars, or do you kind of connect with the people that are in the parking lot? Like all of these builds neural pathways and practices this art of connecting to people. And when you do that on a day-to-day basis, you don't feel like the community, the society is out to get you. It's not me versus them. It's you're part of a community and you will connect and you get better at connecting. And that in itself has health ramifications, if not opportunities, because behind every one of those individuals, there is a network of people that you may be able to have access to. So if your goal is to generate wealth, connecting to people on a regular basis and getting to really know them on what they have to share is important. And one of the things that that they can share with you is their connections. So that's how you amplify your impact.
I love that. I have a networking seminar where we actually diagram that out
Yeah.
and we show the power of that. And it doesn't take that many connections, you all. Like you say, it's about that quality of connection, not necessarily quantity. So very powerful. So very powerful. I was thinking something else, but it went out of my head. And anyway, well, no, I was thinking earlier. I had gone out to lunch earlier, and I just read a sticker on the laptop of a woman sitting in front of me, and it was so powerful. It said, "I am my ancestors' wildest dreams." And I had to talk with her about that. I said, "Oh my God, I love your sticker. That's incredible." And then we ended up talking about an artist who's in New Orleans, where I'm going with the travel club. And then we found out that she does art, and I come from a very artistic family. And it was great. I invited her to come to travel club. And this came out of a moment. And I really believe that if we were to take, say, the Native American idea that we are in a web, right? We are truly in a web of connectivity, which other people talk about with the internet, but I think they stole that, just like the United States stole the land. But anyway, we won't talk about that, will we? Sorry, Columbus, you weren't the first person here. Anyway, just saying. So that web of connectivity is there. And really, all we need to do is plug into it. How do we plug into it is such an interesting question, and one way I plug in, Dr. L, is at night. I actually ask my spiritual helpers to go out while I'm sleeping and just connect with the people I need to meet. Bring them my way. Do it, set up the appointments. Now, that doesn't mean I don't have appointments set up myself, right? But I will tell you that the people just show up in my life. Somebody asked me, "How do you get your guests for the show?" And I said, "Well, how do I not get them? I meet them everywhere. It's just impossible not to." So when we are willing and looking for that synchronicity, people call it synchronicity, they call it miracles. Well, no, it's about being willing and open to receive it, to show up.
Exactly. And speaking of connecting, a lot of people, one of those big connections is your significant other.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are trying to look for that person, yes, you can just go to places and one at a time go ahead and meet people. But then now we have dating apps, right? Well, what are those dating apps doing? The reason they're successful is because they're trying to connect people together, right? And then before the dating apps, you also had that you would tell friends, family, "Hey,
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for,"
Yes.
and then you're casting your net out there to see what kind of connections come your way. So what you're describing, Dr. Barnsley, has withstood the test of time, and it's something that's going to continue with or without internet, because that's how we are wired to connect.
Right. And you can try it and let your subconscious work on it the way I was sharing. Just see what happens. It's quite interesting. It really is. It results in a lot of unusual things that are perfect. Like a download of, "I need to call so and so who I haven't talked to in 15 years," and then they need you to give a seminar. "I'm so glad you called out. You were just crossing my mind." But we are connected. Um, and it's such a beautiful thing. Well, Dr. L, this has been so powerful. I love that you assert that these are non-negotiable matrices, and I believe that as well. And if we have something missing out of it, then nothing else works. But if we're only going to have one to start, how about we start with connection? Because as you so wisely put it, with connection, we can get all the others. All the others become available to us. Now today is now we have my favorite time. Well, one of my favorite times of the show, which is when we give away something really cool from our guests. And this will be in the Bold Badass Business Freebie Vault to everybody. So get your pencil and write down this address, which is bit.ly/free from Dr. B. Made it easy, made it rhyme, free from DRB. bit.ly/free from Dr. B. And when you put in your email, which we do not share with others, we are not slimy, then you will be able to open up the vault and you will be able to find all our VIP sponsors, their gifts at the top, and you'll be able to find every single episode. So Dr. L, what wonderful gift are you giving everyone today?
We do have a present in relation to what we have been talking about. It's called the 5 columns of connectivity. And it is available for you guys. It's a PDF document, and
Okay, so we'll get your URL for that a little bit later, and we'll get it into the vault with the episode so that they can rewatch as well. I love that. The 5 columns of connectivity, is that right?
Correct.
I love it. I love that. It's interesting that they use columns. I will be intrigued to see why you use it as columns. But I'm imagining maybe it's because the structure is upon that.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Something that's long lasting. When I was thinking of columns, when I was creating that, I was thinking of the Roman columns, basically.
Yes.
Something that's 2,000 years old and still standing.
Well, that's why I was hearing that. I was seeing like the Greek columns and, you know, where I went and thinking the Acropolis and thinking, wow, look at, you know, poof. So I love that. These will stand the test of time. So everybody listening, I'd like you to put in the chat an aha that you had today. What is something that you realized that will change your life and your business? And what's one action step you'll actually take? One action step. Will you write down the name of somebody you have had a tiff with, or maybe you're estranged from? And will you dare to call them up? I've done this a number of times in my life, and it'll scare you shitless, but it's very important. And are you going to do that? Are you going to just listen and not do anything with this information? What are you going to do? Dr. L, you have given us so much to think about. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Pleasure. It was a delightful experience. Let's put it that way.
Yes, and you gave us so much, and you laid it out in such a clear way. I really appreciate that. And I hope that everyone listening, that you'll go back and listen to it again. And finally, I just want to say to everyone, today, maybe you don't feel like a bold badass. Maybe you had something happen yesterday that discouraged you in your business or your life, or today. Well, I know that you are a bold badass, or you would not have tuned in with us today. So you keep on, keeping on. No quitting allowed here. This is a no quitting zone. And know that as you practice these 4 non-negotiable matrices of wealth creation, your life is going to get better and better. And we'll see you back for another incredible episode next week at Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific. So go be bold and a badass.
You guys.